Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. So the Scouring series is almost upon us, with its first instalment, Ashes of the Imperium, going up for pre-order this Saturday. And man am I excited for this. And I just wanted to have a little chat about it today. A few final thoughts and questions that are running through my mind. It's probably going to be a 2-week pre-order, I imagine, so there's still a little wait, I guess. But still, it's pretty much here. And I am already chomping at the bit to read it. And the biggest thing I am excited for here can be summed up with the word answers. We are finally going to get answers to some of the long-wondered questions that we've had. Or at least questions I've had. Because this is the time and period that, more than any other, sets us up for the 40k universe that we know. That lays the groundwork for what the Imperium becomes. And the Primarchs that we will see returning to it. No longer the same ones that we saw from the Great Crusade. Now forever reeling and consumed by their grief. In a world where the only dream they've ever known is dead. And as we move into this lore-defining read, there's a few main questions regarding the Primarchs I'm most eagerly wondering about, looking forward to seeing answered, particularly for these initial stages. Number 1. What kind of reception are the loyal Primarchs who were not at the Throne World going to receive? Now, we know perhaps the mere Imperial citizenry might be happy to see the remaining loyal Primarchs arrive. However, I'm thinking more primarily the people that matter here. Rogal Dorn, Vulkan, Valdor, the Custodes, the High Lords of Terra. Yes, we know Guilliman has been pounding at the wall, trying his best to reach the Throne World. However, the simple fact is, he didn't make it in time. He was too late. Rogal held out far longer than even he could have hoped for, and yet still, it wasn't enough. And we know Rogal is going to be consumed by his grief in a sense, blaming himself and painting his armour black. But will it really be a welcoming of Guilliman? Or will there be some resentment there? That he didn't get there? And could that spill over to the argument regarding the Codex? The breaking of the legions? And more importantly than Guilliman, what of Leman Russ and Lionel Johnson? Russ, who left the Throne World and the Emperor. Left, despite Rogal's objections, which we know still irked Rogal even during the siege. And then L. Johnson, who apparently never even tried to reach the Throne World at all, instead going about prosecuting his war of vengeance elsewhere. A very much premature war in Rogal's eyes. How will they be received? The sighting of the Throne World post-siege we've already received has clearly shown a Throne World shattered and in mourning, despite its so-called victory. It's hard to see anger being displayed at the Wolf and the Lion in this situation. However, so too I can't help but expect some form of resentment to be shown. From Rogal, from the Custodes. So I'm hugely interested to see how this element is going to play out. Because yeah, look, there was a sound logic to L. Johnson's plan, agreed upon with the Angel and Guilliman, to hurt the traitors and try and draw their forces away from Terra. But honestly, not coming straight to the Throne World, and now the Emperor lost, it's hard not to see it as a foolish and very wrong decision in this outcome. And I think Rogal will absolutely feel that way, as he's already pretty much said to the Angel. So this is a real intriguing factor for me. Probably the element I am most looking forward to seeing. The personal aspect between the brothers. However, number 2. Will L. Johnson still stab the Wolf King? While their brawl on Julan may be pretty famous, I'm not sure the event within the palace between the two is. Within Leman Russ's Primarch novel, we saw a Scouring-era Russ retelling the tale of his sorrow upon reaching the throne world, seeing the ruination of his father upon the throne, and how he literally fled in grief, ending up somewhere in the depths of the palace, where he would fall into a slumber. In his dream, the Emperor would visit him and tell him he hasn't failed him, and that his duty is to defend the Imperium, not him, and it always was. And Russ would awaken to find Lionel Johnson standing over him, also clearly rattled by what's become of their father. And here, in his own grief, L. Johnson would start yelling and arguing with Russ, telling him that they never finished their duel, and trying to pick a fight, which Russ would simply refuse. And the lion would go on to stab Russ with his sword, turning his blade aside from his heart at the final moments. And Russ, retelling the story, says it drew the bad blood out between them, allowing them to speak as brothers once again. And this event should, in theory, transpire within Ashes of the Imperium. However, I am a bit worried about a retcon, as we've already been informed via a White Dwarf article that Leman Russ joined L. Johnson on his campaign of vengeance in Heresy, which means the two Primarchs have already been within each other's company, fighting side by side. And the argument beneath the palace doesn't explicitly say that they hadn't seen each other since Julan. However, it was kind of implied. So I'm very eager to see if this moment does get mentioned, or discussed, or even seen, as the lion stabbing Russ isn't something to not go unnoticed. And I'll be a little disappointed if it is seemingly retconned. However, answer number 3 that I'm most looking forward to seeing, maybe a bit of a smaller one here, is Guilliman's reaction to seeing Vulkan. Because let's not forget, as far as Guilliman's concerned, Vulkan is dead, seeing his corpse on Macragge, and handing it over to Vulkan's sons to take to Nocturne. And now here Guilliman is arriving to the throne world, and he's going to find Vulkan alive and well. So it's safe to say Roboute's going to be shocked and surprised. And despite his sorrow at the Emperor, in theory he should be happy to see his brother. And this is surely a reunion that needs attention, because it's pretty important, I think, and not something that Guilliman would merely take in his stride. A brother back from the dead. He has mourned Vulkan's death as he did Ferris's. Finding him alive would be a big deal. And to be fair, the same for L. Johnson too, who was there on Macragge by Guilliman's side, though obviously is a far more reserved personality than Roboute. So you'd expect the lion to be shocked as well, and we should get to see his reaction too, alongside that sorrow at what's become of their father, and not to mention the angel. However, question number 4, and probably the biggest and most important question and answer we need to see, is how the transfer of power from Rogal to Roboute goes down. Now this is something I think most people had long believed to be a willing transition. Rogal has vocally stated himself previously that in Guilliman's absence he is Lord Commander, heavily implying to me that he felt Guilliman should be it over him. And several times throughout the siege of Terra, he displayed his clear faith and trust that Guilliman was coming, that it was never in doubt, again reaffirming that respect between them. However, the closer we've got to the Scouring, the more I've really began to wonder if maybe it's not so straightforward. That maybe these Space Wolves were right in the Dawn of Fire novel Wolf Time, where they claim Guilliman stole the Lord Commander title from Rogal. Of course, in reality, it won't be so black and white. However, could there be an element of truth there? Could we maybe see in Ashes of the Imperium Rogal reluctant to hand over command? Or maybe the High Lords of Terra go to Guilliman in private, inform him that, I don't know, maybe it was one of Malcador's contingencies or something, or even simply their wish, that they decree Guilliman to take over the role from Rogal. And Guilliman agrees to it. It's unlikely, I agree, but in knowing how contentious the arguments are about to get between them, and seeing them clearly at a war of words on the cover, again, I can't help but think maybe the Space Wolves of all the Imperium, cut off and independent as they have always been, retained a memory of what really went down. Let's not forget, Leman Russ was very much on Rogal's side after all, and never accepted the Codex. And they still have Bjorn the Fell-Handed too, who was there firsthand, who would have spoke with his Primarch about it. So it all adds a lot of weight. Wouldn't it be a fantastic storyline if they did go that route? If it wasn't quite as amicable as we've always thought, that not only does Guilliman tell his brothers he's breaking the legions, but that he does so after taking the Lord Commander position by force, in a sense, against Rogal's wishes. Man, that would add some real spice to the whole thing. However, lastly, I really just want to know what's going on with the Raven Lord Corax, the only Primarch not present on the cover. Does he return to the Throne World to join his kin or not? We've always been told he supported Guilliman's Codex, but is it his chapter, or I guess his legion that does so, rather than him instead? Will Corax remain on Deliverance, departing for the Eye of Terror, without seeing any of his brothers, without returning to the Throne World to see his father? I don't know. Judging by the cover, I'm assuming so. But either way, we are on the verge of finding the answers out. And so as always everyone, what do you think? What are the most pressing questions and answers you are looking most forward to as we dive into the first edition of the Scouring series? The era of the Imperium that shapes the 40k universe as we know it. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.